Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop today. A treat especial. Don't mind the shipping damage. What we have is a reciprocal dingus lopper. That's a little Freudian slip of the tongue in the bum. A reciprocating dingus lopper. Reciprocal dingus lopper is what you get on an away mission to... It's a new year. You guys deserve better. I'm going to truncate that dick joke on account of it being kind of offensive. Although nobody likes a shortened dick joke. We'll get this apart. Count the stock now. Count the clock. Gotta try something new here. You never know what's gonna work until you try it. Just wrap that up like so. This ought to work. Yeah, just about calving time. Got to get a little practice in. Ah, that didn't work for shit. Okay, take two. Don't mind the fella with the beautiful blue-green countenance behind. Yeah, I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying. We all discombobulated. Pretty rare occasion that I'm speechless. Time! Oh, no. Clearly illustrated now is the danger of keeping a mistress. You forget what dirty old hole you stuck your important bits in. I haven't a bateria for this. It's at the other shop, the other EOD with the Haas power machine. So, I won't be able to test that if we get her apart. Not to worry, lads. I can do this all evening. That's my dog made of razors. Just does nothing to explain the fact of why he's portrayed as so vain and petty. But I surmise it's got something to do with his very keen interest in ladies' fashion. Colossians chapter 4 verse 6. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt. And furthermore, Proverbs 19:11. We're going to have a look at Igauging Mini Mag 6-inch height gauge. A little bit small for me, but no accounting for some taste. This came from Lee Valley. It's one of them cheapo Chinesium instruments. I'm gonna see if she's any fucking good at all. Still licking my wounds from the last unboxing. I will say this. Easy target picking on poor defenseless straws. What they gotta get rid of is styrofoam. Those peanuts and this stuff. Geez, this stuff is like shop sparkle. It just gets everywhere. We plainly see right off the hop that this is a very low-cost device, or should be a very low-cost device, whether or not the label printed on there is such. Plainly evident is IP54 in bold Times New Roman, so it prevents the ingress of ball bearings, tea leaves, well, not tobacco spittle. We'll try and get, there's a big old CR20, 2032 coin cell. Better than a doorknob. We'll put a new one in there, see if that works. And metallized plastic all on the periphery. You see how this is not a precision instrument. That's built for woodworkers. The sateen finish on here, this, if this was a proper height gauge, this would be ground. And the fact that there's magnets in there, it's built specifically down to a price and for a purpose. That is sticking on your table saw to check the height of it. Horrific. Have a look at the grind there. That's on the dingus end. It's not, it's off to one side here. Yeah. We got a little bit of looseness in the hips, not nearly as terrible as I would have figured. You see, even the brand new Me Too Toyos, there's always some little bit of looseness there, if you hear that. And as a comparison, pretty much the same amount of clickety-clackedness. This has a feature which is only available on either super expensive meters or super cheap calipers, that is. In that it has a USB port, not for charging or anything, for getting the serial data off of the measuring bus. So that's something that you find on the super cheap one. So if you want to hack this into some sort of automated measuring system or some sort of kind of half-assed cobbled together metrology department, then you can. Get the back sticker off. We'll get into the inwards and see how they are put together. So there's the brains of the operation. And there's the clamp. Oh, that's nice. It doesn't just fall apart. That's actually slotted. And you need to get this guy in order to get your bronze wiper out of there. Kind of a bronze wiper slash brake pad. Yeah, there we go. And you'll see that on occasion. You loosen this right off, the thing will be real tight and gnarly. Actually, speaking of, for a cheap gauge, it's reasonably clean. We've seen those calipers before, $10, $20, $30 jobbies from the usual scumbags, right full of grinding dust. No care taken to clean anything off. In this case, they've actually, allowed their workers to have access to rags. On the manufacturing side, this is an interesting piece. It looks like a couple components from different factorías. This is clearly from a different facility than this. And then we see there's only one, just but the one fastener there. We'll have a look. If it's only one fastener, no pins or nothing, that's an oddball way to do it because, of course, one, it can pivot around. And I'd be surprised if there was pins in there because of, because the additional cost. But pins are the best way to locate something accurately. And lo and behold, pins. There's a multitude of processes going on here. So they ground this edge. It looks like they've milled this and put it in some sort of jig and broached it. You see the smeary marks there. You can see individual grains of steel all smeared over. Yeah, look at that. That's pretty horrific. But then they've come in after the fact. Well, this side has that copper washer, brass washer, red brass. Might even be bronze. And then this side is quite a bit cleaner than the other side. But they've had to come in here with a slitting saw after the fact and then mill out this little pocket. What for? Something. I'm not quite sure what. But then here's the threaded hole for the thumb screw. Maybe if I could focus, or just stay focused, wouldn't blame the camera so much. Huh? There you go. See, that's all chewed up over, so that's the last process they've done is threaded that tiny little maybe M3 hole, and then left all the chips and shmoo in there, so that's not particularly golden. They've done a good job on the cosmetology. You see, everything visible has been ground, but anything invisible is pretty atrocious. That's the pin bore there. It clearly just been twist drilled, hasn't been honed or reamed. So yes, there are pins there. Does it matter? No, because the bosses are completely hoopa-jooped. We're into the brain boxery here. You see, not much. There's a blob on board, epoxy coated blob on board, and some tactile switches, which when you complete the circuit with this conductive material rubber pad, and it gives a 1 or a 0 to tell you what to tell this guy what you want it to do. Now the way it's doing the actual measurement, the encoding, it's a capacitive encoder. So it's encoding a 1 or a 0, and the 1, depending on where it lines up on this guy. And on this guy, if you see back here, there we go. You see back here, this is glass backed and it's a PCB board as well. It's got copper traces. So when it's right over top, right in line with those copper traces, then you get a different capacitance as when it's off of those traces a little bit. And there'll be some offset there. So it'd be like a quadratic encoder. The beauty of the quadratic encoder is that it can tell if it's going forward or reverse. So not only is it counting the pulses, but depending on which one of those signal fires first on the 4 input signals, it can tell if it's moving up or if it's moving down. So that's what it's doing. It's essentially just counting pulses along 4 signal paths in order for it to decide if it's chooching up or it's chooching down. And then all it does is count. That's all it does. And then it outputs that count onto a little LCD display. And there's there we go. And there's a zebra stripe in there, a conductive rubber. There's conductors in this rubber bit so that it preloads up against these pads. So if you ever get kind of a weak digit in anything LCD display, then what you can do is take this off, clean it up, and a lot of times that fixes the problem. Or even shim it with a piece of tape so it abuts against the contacts just a little bit harder, and that a lot of times saves you buying a new one. Now she's back together. We'll see if oh yeah, it still works. I have to re-zero it. It occurs to me that I misspoke. Did I say that there was 4 signals for that quadrature encoder? No. Yeah. It's been nice knowing you, boys. Rip in pieces. Comment section. Although I do appreciate you keeping me honest. You know, it's a little bit it's hard. I am a human. It's hard on the old ego, but when I do make mistakes, probably the best, I would venture to say, the best comment section on all of YouTube is right here down below us in the doobly-doo, especially when I make a mistake. The pitchforks and the torches come out mighty quick, fast, and hurry. One man does not a hive mind make. I can't compete with a million brainiacs. It just ain't gonna fucking happen. We're 0. Yeah, perfect. 9 inches. We're gonna see about the repeatability of this thing. We get our granite basal plat. And what I was saying about the quadrature, you get 2 signals, but there's 4 states. Both signals can be a 1 or a 0. It can be off or on. So you call those A and B or whiskey tango, say. And depending on which one is leading, like it's a square wave, right? There's signal whiskey. There's single tango. If signal tango is going first, then we know it's going up. Just checking the repeatability on the surface, and it seems to hit quite flush. More flush than I would have suspected. So we're at we'll zero it over here. And we'll go 1, 0, 0, 0.5. Move it a little bit, 1. It's pretty repeatable, all things considered. Now we got a 9mm specimen, which in human readable units is 356 thou. I'll just prove it to you there. Yeah. Off by a titty bit. So off by 0.2 of a millimeter. Yeah, pretty repeatable, all things. You know, looking at the cost. Are you actually going to use it for metrology? No. Are you going to use it for laying stuff out? You could possibly. You sit it on here, you set your height at what you want, and then you go ahead and mark your part with the sharp bit. The only thing is, it's got to be off by 10 thou on one side. You know, it's cantilevered over, so plenty good enough for table saw work. I would say joinery and you know, real rough machining. So now we come to it. Is this approximeter, you know, your plus minus 2 thou right in there, is this approximator worth the money? Well, it's $60 hairs on from the usual scumbags. You know, the meat tutorial is going to cost you $600. So it's a matter of how often you use it. How much do you need to rely on it? What's your confidence? What are you happy at? In the case of, I've long been an ardent supporter of buying good quality calipers. They make a world of difference in your day-to-day. but you use the ever-living shit out of good calipers. You don't, I might use this like 3-4 times a year. You know what I'm saying? So plus minus 5 thou is plenty good. Heck, here in the Empire Dirt, I'm happy if a part just comes off without an end mill welded to it. We learned from taking apart the cheapo calipers, normally there's a lot of grinding dust and shit in there. I cleaned this all up. There's not a lick of grinding dust, so it feels quite nice. The other thing we got to do when not in use, we got to take the battery out, because these cheapo boards, they suck the juice. That's the difference between a good one and a crappy one, is not only the embodiment but also the electronics. These absolutely sip juice, and realistically you can leave them on all the time and you'll still get far longer lifetime than with one of these cheapos. This thing, I think we calculated it was 6 or 8 months between battery changes it would be, because even when it looks off, it ain't off. It's on, sucking that battery dry. When this guy is off, it's still sipping tiny, minute amounts of microcurrent, microamps, but it does the same when it's on. So in my eyes, then that's fantastic, because you can go ahead and spend $60 and you get what you're expecting. It's not a total piece of garbage. It's actually remotely usable. So thanks for watching. Keep your climbing a clamp.